Meeting called to order. Today is Tuesday, April 4th. It is now 6:51 PM. Town Council Budget Hearing, 1170 Main Street, West Warwick, Rhode Island. We stand for prayer. At this time, I'm not going to do a prayer, but if everybody could just take a moment and think about what you're thankful for. Thank you. Jay, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Councilman Licciardi?
Here.
Councilman Messier is absent. Councilman Bourget?
Here.
Council Vice President Williamson?
Here.
Council President Goslin?
Here.
Quorum is declared. Public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2024 municipal budget.
Mark, do you have any, I know you read your opening comments in the last meeting, but do you have anything before I move on?
Nothing additional.
Okay, the way I'm gonna do this, we're not gonna go department by department, line item by line item. The way we usually do this, we have the two public here, workshops. Anybody's able to attend or view that online. And then that's what this two sessions are for, is, you know, council making changes and also the public able to speak and also give any ideas, solutions, or ask any questions that they may be unclear for. So before I get started, anything from the council before I let the public speak? On any department, that includes school, municipal, police, fire.
I do have some comments. I want to thank all the department heads first for, I actually wrote it out this time, which is unusual for me, for the good work they do in preparing their budgets. It made it very difficult to find any additional cuts. I will say, it's off topic here, the cuts that I'm proposing are like peanuts compared to a $113 million budget, but I have to look someplace and it all adds up. I do believe a penny saved is a penny earned type of mentality, so. As we know, the biggest expense we have as a town is salaries and benefits, most of which are contractual. Most of the areas I'm going to ask about are really small amounts, but they do add up. The first one is department head salaries, not including the town manager because he's contractual. The civic center, the sewer department, because they're different budgets. The total increase in salaries from last year to this year is $59,711. That's just for department heads. I know that part of that is last year's increases that were not factored into the 2023 budget because of the process that we used last year. So it's like last year's raises and this year's raises combined. So I divided that number in half, bringing it down to 29,856 as a rough number for what the total would be for this year's increase. My recommendation is to cut this in half to $14,927 that the manager can distribute as he sees fit. This would give $14,927,000 savings to the taxpayers. I know everything's going up. That's why I would not sit here and say 0% increase for the department heads. I know how hard everybody works, but I also know that a lot of people in this town work very hard and they're struggling to get by as well. So I just looking for a little bit of fairness and balance as far as this goes. And that's a proposal I'm moving forward with for department heads. Obviously, I'm only one vote and it has to go to the rest of the council as well.
Any other comments from the council?
I have other stuff and just talk about that, you know. So if you want me to just go through all my stuff?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Again, a lot of this stuff is really small. Under town planner, under board payroll, the request is for $3,600. Looking at the history for that line item, they never come close to that. So I'm just asking to cutting it by $1,600. Under town council, the sunshine fund is for $2,500. We never come close to that, so I'm looking to cut $1,000 off of that. Finance, you know, Kristen spoke about this at the last meeting. The part-time position for $25,000 a year. I don't know if that's something that's completely necessary, if it could be cut somewhat. If so, then it's 25. If you cut the whole thing, it's $25,000 total. If it's partial, I know Chris and I did talk a little bit earlier, so I don't know if she has any comments that she wants to make on it.
talked, and if you want to cut it, you could cut it down by 10 or half, if that's what you want to do. Just be more limited hours, that when I do find someone that would be able to help out.
Thank you. Under tax collector, under overtime and sick bonus, the request is for $6,000 and $1,200. Again, looking at the history, they don't come close to it, so I'm looking to cut 2,000 off of the overtime and 400 off the sick. Under tax assessor, and I'm glad Sal's here. Under conference and travel, it's $1,100. Most of the years, he doesn't hit 100. But I don't know if that $800 you have listed, is that something that's new? Or is it just something that you haven't used?
Sal, just come on up real quick.
I think I had lowered it down to that amount, and actually we have a couple of conferences coming up in May and June that we're going to use it. And I have a new deputy that is on staff, and I was planning on her taking some classes also.
So you're gonna look for that to stay at 1,100 then?
Yes.
Okay, all right. In any department, I believe you, I'm just throwing this out there for discussion, so please, feel free to speak on it. Under fire, under longevity, there's a discrepancy between the chief's calculations and Kristen's of $7,361. Why the difference on that? And which one are we going with?
Mine, because I calculate it based on the actual days that they are at that longevity rate, where the chief doesn't prorate it, I prorate it.
Okay, because that's not, but is that reflected in his budget? Because I didn't see that under managers, his is different than yours.
Mine is linked to the personnel supplement, and I go person by person and calculate their longevity, and that ties into a total that goes into his budget.
Okay, thank you. Under street lighting, the request is for 90,000. We've been keeping it very low. As Dave said, it used to be a lot higher, but with all the changes, I'm looking just another $5,000 off of that. With all these recommendations, it would save the taxpayers $58,088. If that's including eliminating the full-time, the full amount of the part-time position for Kristen, and using Kristen's numbers for the line item and longevity. Without the savings from Kristen's part-time person, it'd be $25,727. Like I said, I know this is peanuts in a $113 million budget, but when the department heads do such a good job keeping their expenses low, it's very hard to find additional cuts.
Thank you, Mark. Any other council person? Bless you.
No?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I have some questions as well, based on the last meeting. Colin here,
Yes.
Yes.
just a question on your staff increases, Colin. What is the percentage? That I don't think it would be fair if we gave like an 8%.
It's heading in that direction. I think it's about 7. So that's off the top of my head.
I'm really torn with this because
Yeah.
when we had no money back when I
Mhm.
first started the council, I was not for previous director came up and he fought for his budget. And I give him so much credit
Yeah.
because he wouldn't take no for an answer. But we had no money.
Yeah.
And now as we're trending, I don't know, we're more positive.
Yeah.
We're in a better position than we were 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But if I'm all for if one department or one union or one group gets a % increase, then it should be fair across the board. Either you all get it or nobody gets it.
Mhm.
But I can't justify giving a 7% raise if not everybody else is getting 7%.
So I guess if,
But I am also saying it really bothers me that when somebody has a master's degree and they're working here and they're not going anywhere else, they love their job, they should. So I am torn with this. Sorry. But what would it take to decrease that number to make it, say we cut it in half?
I would lose more staff. So that's what it would take. So, when I appeared, before you, last week, so I mentioned that already this year, I've lost 2 librarians. Who've both moved to other library positions. Because of the salary we offer. So if they had, if salaries were, as I said, my goal is to get my staff to the median salary of a librarian in the state. We're not remotely close to that. Therefore, as I announced last week, we're Rhode Island Library of the Year. Subsequent to that, as I informed you guys, we're one of 15 libraries selected nationwide as a finalist for the national medal. But people can't eat the national medal. They can't pay their mortgage with the national medal. So
What is your average salary of a librarian?
I could give you that number off the top of my head. So I mean, I can tell you that there are folks whose jobs require a master's degree making $21 an hour.
See, that goes back to my comments earlier about them making minimum wage 15. So you have a high school student, hasn't even graduated high school yet, making almost as much money as somebody with a master's degree.
Yeah.
And it boggles my mind. It really does. I don't understand how people can think that that's a good idea. It's just going to increase.
I mean, if you could hold on for a second, Jason, I mean, I can tell you how much those.
Looks like we're gonna be here for a while tonight.
Those positions, those positions make. So,
Could you? Could you?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Are we talking about sewer tonight also? But school is, so. They do have something with the school, but it's like, I don't know where to go with that one. You guys are tough. In a good way.
So actually, I can't. I can give you a couple of examples if they're helpful. So, the position I talked about, children's librarian, one of the positions that we lost is $36,000 a year. So that job, I'll give you some points.
That's what it is now?
Yes.
And what is it in your increase? What does it get
So
to?
it's a $2 an hour increase is kind of what I'm looking for. So that position in South Kingstown,
Yeah, no.
that position in South Kingstown is $54,000 a year. In Coventry, it's $49,000 a year. In Cumberland, it's $50,000 a year.
You don't have to keep going.
I
So,
want him to, I like his accent.
I just had to ask it, Colin.
no, I understand, and I take your point about, it's as a percentage increase, it's a higher increase, although my staff are not in the same union as the rest of the town
Right.
employees. But we're starting from a very, very low benchmark, and I'm trying to raise people up to have.
These are full-time positions.
These are
correct?
full-time positions, yeah,
40 hours or 37,
35.
35? And that was a $36,000 salary.
Yes,
Which position is that?
that's the children's librarian.
Is that the youth services
Yes,
librarian?
youth services
Okay.
librarian.
I have her at 38,638.
Yeah. Okay, so,
We'll even.
It doesn't matter.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. Thank you.
okay.
52 equals
Any-
divided by-
I'm good, thank you.
I also had some of the things that Mark had put, had suggested, Sunshine Fund, Finance, and street lighting. Kristen, you had mentioned last time that street lighting were contractual.
Yep.
What is the number?
$5,957 a month.
Okay, which is 60,000,
71,484.
that we're obligated to pay,
Mhm.
and we have 90 as a cushion.
Correct,
Okay.
because then we've actually been having. quite a
Yeah, no,
few.
all right,
For
it's fine.
actual lights.
But just as a point of reference, usually if we're just replacing a light fixture, I think those usually run around $900. If we need to put up a new one, it's a little between 3,000 and 4,000. So we've been averaging, I think we did 5 this year. I know I just approved 2 within the last week. So
When you say put up a new one, that means like an old one got damaged somehow, so changing it out, or is this like?
got
new
hit, fell
development area?
down,
Oh, okay.
tree hit it. Or a spot's been
transfer, they
identified
dropped
that
it
it's
on
too
purpose.
dark.
So question on that now, with all, like, we have developments going in different parts of town. Who pays for all those lighting? Is it the town or is it developers to pay for that?
If they're putting a new development in, they're usually putting all the infrastructure in. And then we assume
The maintenance
the street moving forward.
after it's all complete?
Correct.
I also I went for the council, actually, and I wanted to discuss this part with the council. We have $10,000 in there for contributions to organizations. And I know that got brought up before, and I'm one to give back to the community, but we haven't really been using. So is that something that I think we could cut $5,000 off that?
Usually spend 7,500 of it at least.
Right.
Cut
6,000.
2,500,
And
so
we're
whatever we
proposing an
don't spend.
increase. Oh, no, that one's not paid out yet. Never mind.
So I'll propose 2,500 in that. And I said it before, I think capital this year, I'd like to cut the whole thing. And we can use ARPA money if we need, and there's definitely things that need to be done, but it's my personal opinion. The other one I have is a school department, which this is very, very difficult because I applaud you for not coming to us for all these years. And you're only coming to us for a little bit of money, according to the grand scheme of things. However, is this possible? I don't know if legally we can do this, because sometimes I say things and it's against the law, but anyway, you're looking for 500. And I know, Joe, you had mentioned, we're up in the air with the state funding and all this. But once we're committed, we're committed. And if you get enough state funding, then it's like, all right, we gave you 500,000 and you'll shelf it. I'm not okay with that. But can this work? If come the end of next year and you don't get the funding, or you get half of it from the state, that means you'd only be looking for 250 from us, but that'll be way past budget time. If you're in trouble and you need the 250, can the school department come to the town? We only got this much from the government, from the state. We need another 250. Can we take that out of the cash reserve? It's a creative way of doing it, if it's allowed.
The
It
school
becomes
has its own,
maintenance of it.
well, so the question I have, and I know where you're going, but the school has its own surplus budget also. And I know they designate it towards buildings and whatever else. So the question would be, can they subsidize out of their surplus and not ours?
Actually, the budget they presented had 500,000 out of their surplus towards their budget, if I recall. Yes. So
But is that doable? Because I don't want to leave you hanging out to dry where
And-
it's nothing. But is that possible? or No.
No,
But this,
Why not?
under Title 16, their budget's their budget. So when this happened 2007, 2008, they ran into a similar situation, financial town meeting, the chairman of the school committee got up, told everybody, we're gonna take care of the problem because their budget was not balanced. When push came to shove, well into the school year, the town decided to pay $1.2 million in their debt. And everybody signed the agreements, everybody signed off, everything was public, nobody had a problem. Following year, again, not enough money. They brought that back up because it wasn't approved. It went against the law, and the Department of Education did not approve it. If you're projecting a $500,000 increase, it's because of what they're projecting to be their maintenance of effort. If you're going to try to say, take half of that, that still doesn't change their budget, which is $500,000 for maintenance of effort. Understand?
Mhm.
Title 16 does not allow you to do it. If you're going to propose it and they agree to do it, my suggestion would be is now it's going to go to the Department of Ed. The Department of Ed's going to have to bless it. so we don't run into the same problem we ran into back in '08 when they came back and said, well, we know we weren't gonna go back on our word, but we did.
So just a
Ti-
quick,
Basically,
and
Title
that-
16 does not allow you to do that.
And that little earthquake lasted for at least 5 years after that. School committee for at least 5 years after
I
that.
was gonna say probably, but I mean, things kind of worked their way by 11 or 12. Things were better.
Yeah.
And that thing, you've had, I don't want to call it, but you've had peace in the valley for the past at least 10 years.
Yes, so it's been a very good working relationship between the school committee and the town council, and I'd like to keep it that way, and that's why I say this is tough, is because, the way, like as Joe had mentioned, when he presented, the way the schools handle all their upkeep, I don't know if that's the most effective way for the town overall to do it, or should it be like we do at the Civic Center, where we pay for it and then there's a payback, situation, because the maintenance of effort is what scares, I think, everybody up here and probably scares you guys as well, because you don't know. It's hard for you to even project what you're gonna be in 5 years because you have no idea what each year is gonna bring you. And it makes it very difficult.
so just, Jay, going back to your comment about cutting and using out of the rainy day fund, or whatever you want to call it. Joe and Karen, you have a at the end of 2022, and I know I'm gonna minus 500,000 out of that now, but you have $5.8 million in a surplus. How much is that, of that is designated as of right now?
How much is designated for what?
Well, out of the 5.8 million.
Yep.
You're asking us for 500,000, you're taking 500,000,
We,
and you reduced the state aid on your end
By the
300,000.
that's correct.
So if you get the state aid of the full gamut of whatever.
Yep.
You minus the 300,000, I'm just gonna throw out a number. If it's 1.2 million and you reduce it to 900,000, if you get the 1.2, after we gave you the 5, by law, you don't have to give us a dime back.
Right, it stays with us as maintenance of effort. That's correct.
So
And so, and our fund balance is roughly, I don't know if it's 5.8 or 5.3. For some reason, I think it's 5.3, but I'll take a look at it.
Well, maybe after that 500.
that's right, I said
Maybe.
it's 5.8
Okay.
at the end
Yeah.
of 2020,
Yeah.
So
in this, but then I minus so it's 5.3 after.
we have a policy in place that requires us to have 5% of the prior year's operating budget in a reserve as our rainy day fund. So anything above that, which is roughly around $2 million, is an undesignated amount of money that's not reserved on the school department side. And that's what we use to move into the capital projects fund as we go. Right, I did a quick analysis to look at our surplus since 2018. And it's roughly, I'll just go by rough numbers, roughly $5 million in surpluses cumulative since that time, over what, 5 or 6 years. In that time, we transferred 59% of that into our capital projects budget. And a lot of the balance of that went into, salary increases, step movement, longevity movement, and all those things. So we're right now in the process of doing our 5-year capital plan again for the next round. And we're anticipating another over $1.2 million being transferred in once we get started in that program over the course of the 5 years. So I understand what you're saying. We do have money in reserve. We have utilized it. We have put 500,000 into our budget. We're hoping we don't have to use it, but we don't know. It'd be nice to say that we didn't have to take that money at all.
So if you get full state aid, that $500,000, that just go back to
Well, just to
the
clarify,
reserve.
it's 300,000 that you correct me if I'm wrong, you reduced your state aid by 300,000.
300,000, that's correct.
So if they get the full state aid, 300,000 of the 500 they're requesting, they would only have
Technically
needed
wouldn't have to
200.
use. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Just as you said, you're hoping not to use yours.
I know, I get it. It's a
We-
tough position. I understand. And that's why when we do our budget and we talk about these things, we don't just willy-nilly say, well, the town, we'll go to the town for that. But plus, we are in negotiations right now with the certified staff. We don't know where that's going to end up. And that's not really in the budget right now. But we have the same problem the civic center's having, getting our staffing in here, getting people, getting our wage up to the point where we're not the lower third of the state who wants to come to West Warwick when they can make $20,000 a year more starting somewhere else. So we're all
Go figure, 16 years ago, you were number one. and
number
two
one.
between
That's what they
West
tell
Warwick
me. I
and
wasn't
West
here.
Warwick, right?
I was
And
there
so
for the
that's the
good times.
difference, right? You've gone down.
That's right. That's right.
So in 16 years, you went from number one, number two paid in the state to the bottom.
Bottom third. That's
So
correct.
that- just
Almost
to
the very
show you that
bottom.
reversal there.
And they do tremendous work. The district does tremendous work for that salary. And I think they need to be recognized too, but we got to find a balance. It's got to be something that can be manageable.
There's no doubt, part of the issue is the way the state handles this, because they won't come
Exactly.
out with their budget until after we have,
That's right.
potentially after we have our financial town meeting and our all-day referendum,
Correct.
which is crazy. So I think we need to collaborate and work with the state to come up with a better way to do it, because we're always guessing. So yeah, if you ask us for 500,000 and yet you get, you know, 1,200,000 more,
Yep.
then it sort of, it eats at us because we have that
Sure.
maintenance of effort. So that 500,000 becomes 5 million over the course of 10 years, which is a big number. So there's gotta be a better way to do this.
I
I
don't
don't
wanna-
know what it is.
I
No
don't want
way
to throw
that-
sand and sticks, but that does become 5 million over 10 years, but the level funding that we've gone through.
No
becomes tens of
question,
Millions for 5 years. too.
no question
So it's
about
both-
that.
We're both working in the same area. you
Been
know.
terrific partners and I'm a big fan of the schools. So there's no question about that.
Just want to make it clear, we are looking for a 2.83% tax increase. So, obviously with Councilman Bourgette's cuts, we're probably 2.82 now,
Right.
2.81. So, and again, in Jay's, I mean, I'm just doing quick math in my head, but if we can get, a couple 100,000 here, a couple 100,000 there, it makes up for those $1,500 cuts that we're looking at. And so, I mean, I don't know what we can do. I just, in the end, I know, like, even last year, your state aid was exactly what you didn't have.
They fulfilled it.
And
yeah.
they fulfilled it,
did.
and you reduced it a little bit last year in your budget also. But you got the full. And then it went into your surplus this year. So
Well,
just
we
don't want-
transferred that full
Yes,
balance
yeah.
into capital. 'Cause we
Absolutely.
Knew that that's.
Building
And you
fund,
put it-
that's
you
right,
put it into
1.25,
put it-
yes.
and you continue to make these buildings what they are. But as taxpayers see it is, they'd like to have something in their bank accounts also,
Sure.
and if it's just, sitting there collecting, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a good time to collect interest. It's finally getting up there. It's been a long time. But, we have to look at what we can do to reduce that 2.83 to,
And Beth, I share your concerns about the process of state aid. And this year, we're just particularly concerned. As recent as today, we had a meeting and there was no update from the state of numbers. This year, there's an increased concern that the governor's budget may change because of some of the programs there and initiatives, summer programming, after-school programming, that they may take some of that money for. So we share the frustration.
And just to, and I want to say it out loud, I know you said, I have concerns about the capital. The town owns those buildings. I am proud of the way those buildings look. I go to other districts and other communities and even facilities. I mean, I was in East Providence not long ago and they have a magnificent facility. But the way we keep, our facility, our buildings here, I mean, couldn't be more proud. So you guys do a terrific job. So we could never take that over, the work part of it. I don't know how the financing part of it works. So
I would just say, I know it was brought up the last time. I
Right.
think it's a discussion that, obviously not for this budget season, but for.
To be had, I
as-
agree.
Yeah.
That we can talk about as time goes on, because the way you're doing it might be the best way to do it, but there might be some other ideas
Maybe, I
that,
agree with you.
but to
Yeah.
have a discussion, we're never gonna hurt to have a discussion.
Yeah,
so.
I agree, because it would help all of us if we, best scenario would be, they would give us the number we need right now. And I don't know if we can have any influence on
assume-
that or not, but
I assume other finance directors and superintendents have similar
every-
frustrations
very
and
few districts don't have this problem. I think East Providence has a different budget
East Providence
cycle.
goes November to November.
Right,
so,
right,
yeah.
right. So
November to
otherwise, I
October.
think most of us are in the same boat. but we do what we can to when there's, like last year when we got more state aid than, or the number we were supposed to get. The parking lot project as an example.
Yes.
So that's just one way where will continue to partner with the town. We agreed to pay for the engineering part and
Right.
so, but I agree with you, Councilman. I think it's worth the conversation and maybe there is a better way.
Is there, part of what we're up against, for lack of a better term, is that your budget's been passed by the school committee.
Correct.
So if we were to ask you to go back and increase that state aid number to 100%,
Mhm.
that would require a vote. Tell me the mechanics of how that would
Yeah,
have
so
to
we would
work.
just be, our
I
next
don't know if there's an
meeting.
appetite. I've not spoken.
Yeah, I believe our next meeting is gonna be April 17th, because we meant to move it. We put it on the agenda for discussion, just this discussion, and get their opinion on what they'd like us to do.
I'm willing to be creative, but apparently it's kind of, this is pretty much black and white.
Well, no, well,
Well, if the Department of Education gets involved and they bless it, that's where we had the problem last time around. But the last time around, the monies that eventually were owed to the school had to be reimbursed to the town because they had not made their payments for pension for the non-certified. So actually the town made out. So one day the check was provided to the school, the next day they provided us with another check for an additional $300,000. But Title VI gives them basically all the power in the world, 16, I'm sorry, to establish what their maintenance of effort is.
And I completely understand why there's a maintenance of effort there. I can only imagine how hard it'd be for you to do your budget if you knew, if you had to wonder,
but
what is
yes,
the
exactly.
town
So
gonna
you
give
don't
us?
want- yeah.
Yeah, at least you
Right.
know, you have a baseline to work off of every
Right.
single year. So from the
Right.
town,
Right.
is it maintenance of effort with the state also? They don't fall under that, right?
No, but
It's interesting.
That's
Yes. And that's part of the problem.
part of the
So-
problem.
So if we
You
knew
never
that,
know.
if we knew that the state had to give them X
If there
number of
was a
dollars, that would help a
baseline.
lot.
And
Yes.
again, that goes back to my complaints.
Valid.
But if we're looking to have to make a decision tonight, we're just hearing that the master's degree librarians are making under
Mhm.
$40,000 a year. And I'm the one that really spoke up last meeting about, when I pushed the seniors.
Mhm.
I couldn't agree to give the money on a what if. 'Cause I don't think that would be right. That wouldn't be fair. Where I'm looking at nickel and diming the library by 3%. And now we're talking a big number of $500,000. I can't justify it to myself.
So you have it on your agenda to talk to the school committee.
Yeah, we'll put it on our agenda for the next meeting and have a discussion with them and see what their,
Well, again, we haven't voted on this.
No,
No,
so
no.
We still
but
got
it's
tomorrow
a-
night.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see if anybody from the audience has, because sometimes the people have the better ideas, because we get bogged down with our own. way
I'm
of
willing to
thinking
work
and,
with,
you know,
don't,
so-
don't get me wrong, but if we're kind of pushed into a corner it's either yes or no or all or nothing. I just can't do it.
right?
Well,
So
I'm not sure
our,
it's all or
our
nothing
issue
either,
tonight or even tomorrow night, we can't, I have to bring our budget back to the
Sorry,
school
can you
committee.
start
if
over
we-
again? I missed the first part.
That's okay. We won't have an answer from the school committee, obviously, right now or tomorrow. We'd have to bring it to our next
Right,
meeting because the budget they approved is what you have before you. Which we're more than willing to do to bring back to the
and I'm
conversation.
not sure it's an all or nothing. And I don't think it has to be an all or nothing. It's certainly a conversation that can be had. I
Mm.
mean,
Sure, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm all about communication.
Mhm.
okay.
My mindset is definitely to give something. What the something is at this point is what the discussion's gonna have to be. So, you, like Councilman Machado said, you guys haven't come to us in a very long time, and that's impressive. So,
We really do try. I mean, we made a commitment to the town. This is my 10th year in this job. So every year we come before you committed to being good partners and helping when we can, and we have, and you agreed to level funding, came to you, as a matter of fact, and said, we're good. We can be level funded this year. So, and I know you
Actually
appreciate
asked for
that.
money one year and came back and said, no, we don't need it.
Right.
Don't-
This is
So-
don't
why
give it to us.
honestly, this is
understand
very
the-
difficult.
Right.
Oh, I believe that. I believe that. Yeah.
And just to clarify, I know I've been on the council. I know you worked with another superintendent from this council. And the relationship is, like Mark started off earlier, going back to 2009, 10, 11, 12, all the way up to probably about 16. What year did you come in as superintendent?
13.
13. So that's probably when the Band-Aid was starting to heal then, right? It was probably 13, 14.
Yep.
And the relationship was much better than, previous superintendents that, it was all or nothing or tell you to be F off or whatever it was. It was
Never
very,
do
very
that.
unprofessional time. And it was very tough to sit in a
Say
room with
never.
it. It was very tough to sit in a room and discuss. And I gotta say, over the years, it's been very, between the school committee, previous to Louis Cologne being the chairman, Steve Lawton being the chairman.
I agree.
It was very easy to make that phone call, have the discussion. And I'll be honest, I had a discussion with Louis today, going back and forth. And, he put a lot of things out there that that we're unaware of.
Right.
And, and also we talked about negotiations, as you said, and stuff like that. And, so again, I don't want to see it all or nothing or
No.
whatever.
Yeah, no, I think that it's, we need to continue the conversation and see where we land.
While you're up here, and I know it's not part of your budget, but we all did receive an email, and I know I brought it up during budget workshop, crossing guards.
Yep.
I know they're hired by our police department.
Right.
They're trained by our police department.
Trained by our
They're police
We're
department
paid by our police
employees.
department, and then
Yeah.
we ask them for money. It's the craziest
It's-
relationship I've ever, it makes no sense.
Want to take it over?
But thank you.
I don't know, like, I know, I didn't get a response to my email, but there might be somebody here today in the crowd, I'm not sure. For crossing guards, I think, but
Mm.
the same thing, I think, what I think we're gonna hear tonight is probably people at the Civic Center working on a Zamboni are making more than a crossing guard, so, and I have that funny notion, that's what I'm gonna hear tonight.
Mhm.
And, so, I know we talked about it during budget, and maybe we'll get it on our budget side, but I know we're talking about decreasing 58,000, but you might have how many crossing guards that might need a raise because they haven't seen a raise.
Mhm.
But we can talk about.
Mm.
salary schedule, so that's classified, get a raise. to do pass down to the process.
And how often is
The
that?
same.
Uh,
Well,
Well, now.
depends on their contract, whether there's,
So is it an increase every year for 3 years?
Yes,
or-
that's what the contract says.
I do have a crossing
I
guard
just
saying
had
she has
someone-
not seen a raise in 10 years. If you don't mind,
well, I'm not sure why they didn't, but they should have, because that's the, right.
So it comes out of your negotiations, right, your contract.
Historically, since I started, I never understood this.
It makes no
Crossing
sense.
guards, so then
No.
every community.
So, but if it's out of your contract, then why are the police paying?
Well, no, they just go by the rate.
The rate, yeah.
just state your name and address.
My name is Susan Pangman. I live at 137 Phoenix Ave. I've been employed by you for 20 years. I've done all the training from Maisie Quinn on. I do it. I actually took care of when anybody was out, they would call me in the morning because I'm there first. I would switch them around and then I would call my boss and I'd call Anne Marie and tell them that they were out. I've done this for 20 years, but I have not had a raise in 10 years.
We'll have to look into why that.
I
that
make
is. I mean,
14
we don't
cents
pay
more
them,
than
so.
my new partners that have been here 6 years.
Again, and over the next 2 years, this is really gonna have that major domino effect when it's another $2 in 2 years.
I agree with you.
It's gonna have that huge domino effect, and I don't know how the taxpayers of this town are gonna be able to afford it. Because everybody's gonna want that $2 bump that everybody else is getting, just walking, being a high school student.
Well,
It
like
doesn't
I
make sense
said,
to me.
for 20 years, I've done this, and 10 years is a long time not to have a raise.
It is a very
Especially
long
when those girls come, they've been here 6 years. They got 2 raises last year and this year, 75% raise, and I got 0.
Well, that's gotta be a mistake. Yeah,
I
yeah.
got 0.
That's gotta be some
So
sort of.
who,
a-
so
They
who,
could catch up to me.
so who looks into that? Because
I'll give Chris a call. Yeah, make sure it's consulted.
And I've done a double for 13 years.
She's seeing raises, but I don't know, maybe there's something wrong with your
Really?
payroll.
Well, where are they? I would like one.
So, and it's probably a rude question, but can you tell us how much you make an
Yes,
hour?
I make $14.15
An hour.
an hour. And I've
Okay.
been here 20 years. And they make $14.01.
And I have to say, you're a great person to wait 10 years before finally speaking up.
And you're
Well,
supposed to
now
say
I
this with a
like
smile on your
10
face. too.
No, I have spoke up, but everybody passes me to this person, that person. this
Well,
person. They
so
go,
we
"No,
will look
that
into
one."
So
that.
that's one
Yes.
thing I know. Louis Cologne, chairman, I was at Brood Awakenings on a Saturday morning enjoying my breakfast, and he came over and sat down and he told me,
And I
I
love
think
my
he told me your
job. Don't get
name.
me wrong, I love my job.
And
You would
he and I
have
were
to.
going back and forth, and I know I brought this up at the budget workshops. We talked about crossing guards, what they're making, so on and so forth. And then I know
And you know
whoever
we're
sent the
all
email, I don't know
old.
who sent
We're
the email.
old. I'm gonna be 75 in September.
God bless you.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
good
still
for you.
out there doing it.
And
Thank you.
Love
I
it.
wouldn't put you over, I would never even put you close to that age.
I am, and I love every moment of it. I love the kids. They can still come back and see me from the time they were little. They still come back and see me.
And could we have your name again, please?
Susan Pangman.
So we will,
spell
we
that
will,
last name.
no one will pass it. We will get some sort of answer for you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and thank you.
You have contact information for anybody? If not, get
It's
it out.
gotta be.
You have it?
All right. Thanks, Sherry.
Just don't want to leave her hanging. Oh, we don't know how to get.
Sounds like HR has a job in the morning.
But to be the same, well. Well, no, that's not true. Yeah, wait a minute. No, yeah, we're not gonna do that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Tell me a number, I'll pay it, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so anything else from the council?
For the school now, I mean, again, tough position and
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. So we'll do that, have it on our next agenda and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
So
you.
when is it? It's April
April
17th.
17th,
So
Monday. Yeah.
So we have to adopt the budget April 7th.
Oh, you do.
So,
Can you get a meeting before that? A special meeting possibly?
It's vacation week. That's the problem. when
Oh,
People are away.
yeah.
I'll try. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. Okay, I'll see if I can get something quicker. Just for this purpose, quick special meeting.
I think, Mike, personally, I would ask that maybe that number go back to the governor's budget number. I wouldn't say that we cut the 500. There's obviously a reason for the other 200,000 or whatever it is, but okay, we'll work with you guys to figure out whatever that is.
And just to clarify, we want the 2 million to go in, but to bring what we're requesting down.
So you reduced it by 300 if you raise it back up by 300.
If you went to whatever the governor's budget said,
Okay.
yeah, I think that would,
Okay. All
And
right,
we're
thank
gonna,
you.
if there's anything else from the council, I'm gonna open this up to the public. Anything from the council? I know, I think we're all on the same pages on a lot of these things. I mean, I think we talked about the schools. I'm not sure where else. Like you said, it's peanuts.
Right.
So, I mean, if personally, Councilman Licciardi threw out, school, he threw out, capital, which were 2 large items. So that's a discussion we can have further. But anything else from the council before I open this up to the public?
I don't, do you guys have anything?
I pretty much hit everything. Spoke on the school stuff that I had. Public comment.
Alan Palazzo, 5 Robin Lane, and I'm going to be all over the map. You're probably not going to expect what I'm going to say next regarding the schools. I retired from Warwick 2 years ago, and I graduated from West Warwick, and I used to do battle with Mike Petrarca forever and a day. I knew the budget, and I used to compare West Warwick to my school, Pilgrim, which were both built at the same time. And I used to tell the kids, West Warwick High School is in much better shape than Pilgrim. My wife would walk in and said, this is terrible. And I used to do battle with the Warwick School Committee. And I looked at the per pupil cost because I'm always on the ride site and different things. And I was absolutely amazed at the per pupil expenditure for West Warwick. I believe it was either 18 or 18.8, something like that. And for Warwick, it was 23. So kudos to you for that. I just wanted to pass that along. Now, gentlemen and Mrs. Williamson, stand
Mr.
by. I'm sure you've heard of Lincoln Steffens. He was a very famous muckraker at the turn of the 20th century. And 117 years ago, he penned an article that was very famous. Rhode Island, a state for sale and cheap.
Not SAILE.
No. And my compliment for tonight was West Warwick, a town for sale, but it cost the taxpayers very dearly. With regard to the budget, the state budget, the town budget, the fiscal years, 23 years ago, I recommended to the West Warwick Town Council that you should do something to align the town budget with the state budget. So that way it would make it easier, because as long as I was, it's actually about 25 years, they've always had the problem where they're pulling numbers out of the air and they have to go with the people up on, the fools up on Smith Hill. So that's something you need to work on. You have 3 reps, 2 senators. Maybe it's time to do something. Just like I said with the tax freeze for the elderly and for the veterans. You know, we're past the limit. You're not doing it this year. If people would have listened, 25 years ago, things would have been gotten done. Charter Review Commission, that should be an item for the Charter Review Commission. Anytime towns or cities have done that, they've extended the year for the extra months and covered it, but it's worthwhile in the long run so you don't run into any problems. Now, continuing on. At the last council meeting, I raised the issue of ESG and MERS. There was a forum for the elderly last Wednesday, and I addressed ESG with Senate President Ruggiero, and he looked at me and said, "What's that?" And I cautioned you people, make sure that the general treasurer doesn't include the MERS system with ESG investments. That's bullshit. He should be maximizing the return for the people who are vested in the system, not for some social program, okay? Because that's gonna hurt a lot of people. I just wanna put that out because hopefully the council has done something and crafted a resolution to the general treasurer not to do that. But, it's sort of like tax investments, what we do for the seniors. And I'm going to raise another issue.
Before you move on, can I ask, anybody know, can we have any effect on where the state invests the money?
I mean, you
I
can have
don't
a
know.
discussion.
You know, he's,
You can have a
Hey, we don't
discussion,
have
jump
to,
up and down on his desk. He's an idiot. Pardon my French. I got that from 2 reps.
Alan, respect here, please.
Yes.
Excuse me?
Respect here, please. I mean, you're calling a guy an idiot who's not even here.
but anyway, it just.
That's my right. Okay?
I don't know.
Thank
So,
you.
My right to run the
somebody knew
council
what's up.
chambers with respect too.
I just-
Oh, David, don't go there.
Alan,
From what I've seen you in action, okay? That's my opinion.
We've seen each other in action.
No problem. This is about the budget, exactly. This is about your pensions. You want it to go out the window? In 1998, they were funded at 98%. And I stood here and warned, raised red flags, what was happening, and no one paid attention. And then it went down below 20%. So yeah, it's all about the budget. Pay attention to what I'm saying, because I know what I'm talking about. With regard to crossing guards, do something about it. You can come up with money. Someone sent me an email this morning, and you can look into it. I'm going to raise the issue with regard to developments within the town. Okay. They cited some developments on East Greenwich Avenue and some on Pulaski Street that are not individually owned. They're owned by businesses. At least this is what I've been told. I tried to do some research. Let me finish.
I already talked to Sal about this earlier today, and I've already responded to that person and gave them different numbers. So you and I can have a conversation later. If you don't like what I say, next meeting, feel free to bring it up.
I
again,
would
but-
like the people of this town to know the question, okay?
Okay,
I was given a site on 83 Pulaski Street. I went looking, open fields, then there's condos. But the issue being that Mr. Goslin, not you, I'm just throwing you out as an example, owns 19 condos on Pulaski Street, okay? His tax rate, even though he owns 19 of them, he's paying the same tax rate as Al Palazzo at 5 Robin Lane, vice the more than 6 tax rate for the 18 condos. I've been told, I haven't looked into it a lot because
So Alan, you are probably 100% right, but they're taxed under single family. Condo is taxed under single family rate. Now, if I own 17 single families in this town, I can rent out every single one, and guess what tax rate I get? Same tax rate.
and a rental.
wait a minute, hold on.
If I own 17 single family houses.
In that one development, you own the entire 19
Because
buildings.
they're coded as single family and condo are under the same tax rate. So at that point, if I own 17 houses down Main Street, single family houses, I can rent out every single one at the same tax rate. Now, if I have a multifamily and I don't live in it,
The issue, I
have a
think these
rental
people would
tax rate.
disagree. If you own 19 buildings in one complex and you're paying the single taxpayer rate compared to you're paying 300,000 more for the multi.
But Alan, the issue comes in because it's the way Sal explained it to me, it makes sense to me. And I was at the planning board meeting last night trying to get clarification on this also, okay? Take the Elms. That place that has a solid value that they get taxed at the higher rate on the whole complex. Okay, it's not each individual apartment. It's the same thing with the condos. We actually make more money because they tax each individual condo as a single family home rather than what the value of the whole thing would be, because the value would diminish if it's out into a rental situation. So you actually make more money off the single family. Did I get that right, Sal? Thank you.
I think you need to look at it a little harder because the delta of $300,000 for that one complex on Pulaski Street, that covers his searching for $250,000 for the seniors. If there's a problem there, fix it,
You can't,
change the code. That's why we have a planning board.
there's not a problem there.
so Alan, also, those condos are not using town,
Schools?
no, they might be using, I can't say that.
Schools.
I can't say that, but they're not using our plowing, they're not using our garbage, they're not using our recycling,
They're on the main street.
but they're not using it. They're a condo.
They're not using mine. I'm not using them either. They're plowing my street. They're plowing in front of the condos, but they're not plowing the driveways like Governor's Hill. I think it's something that needs to be investigated by this council instead of just fluffing it off, because that's a lot of money. Another item with regard to the veterans officer? Have you looked at appointing someone? I raised that the same time I did the tax freeze for the elderly
At that-
over a
at this
year
time, that
ago.
has Nothing to do with the budget, because it's not a budget item. It's not even in a, even if it's an item, it's a volunteer position, so
Okay.
it's not a budget item.
One last issue with the budget, pages 34 to 39. The differences between salaries and benefits. I mean, who's writing this? The federal government?
I explained it last week at the public workshop.
Excuse me, we can't speak at that workshop. That's why I'm here tonight.
Well, I explained it at the public workshop for everyone to hear that was here, that.
And we couldn't ask a
the-
question.
That the benefits now includes the MERS percentage for each employee of their salaries, where before it was in general government as a big lump sum. Now, the police, their contribution rate is 98% of their salary. That number now is included in that benefits column, along with longevity, payroll taxes, health, dental, life insurance.
98% of their salary
Correct.
goes into a pension. The teachers were the highest around, and that was 10.5. State employees were 9.5. How do you have employees with benefits larger? And this is the thing that I have to question, because Mr. Licciardi has a salary of 50,000 and he has benefits of 16,000. Mrs. Williamson has a salary of 57,000 with benefits of 66,000. It doesn't make any sense. The average person here is not going to understand that. The person on the street is not going to
I
understand
don't think you
that.
heard what she said. Previous to moving it to an individual by employees, departments by employees, it was in the general government of the budget as one giant lump sum. So you'll see in general government, that giant lump sum was moved out of there and moved to each individual department based upon the.
I'm
employee
talking
head-
about individuals, Mr. Goslin,
I am
not the budget. How is it that his benefit is 5 times with his is?
Alan.
The
when you
numbers don't make sense.
Have a brand new employee, the amount of money that they have in MERS is going to be very low compared to somebody who's been here for 20 years. With that 20-year, if I'm understanding it correctly,
Mhm.
that 20 years accumulation is what's reflected under the benefits of what they're going to be paid out when they retire.
So
So
you
they
have
have to-
police officers making, according to their debit side of the house, is $198,000. Are you out of your freaking mind?
I don't know where you get that number.
That we're not
Look at
making-
the numbers. The numbers are here. I told you at the last meeting, look between
You're
34
not- yeah,
and
and you're- but
39.
You're not listening,
No.
Alan. You're not listening.
Those
How much
numbers
have you
include
paid? Did
catch-up
you, how long
contributions.
did you serve as a teacher?
As a teacher, 22 years.
22 years. In those 22 years, do you know how much you put into your pension system?
No, because I haven't, put it this way, my wife was 31 and she hasn't had a COLA increase in 12 years. So, and I sympathize with you. I will
I'm-
fight for you.
I'm really trying to keep a focus here, okay?
Yeah,
So the 22 years that you put in, if you were under our current operating system and still an employee, that 22 years that you had is all going to fall under those benefit column. That's the difference.
the difference is
Before-
what happened to the West Warwick Pension Fund? That's what I'm talking about.
That's not what you're talking about. You asked.
No,
about
it
the other thing.
is. You're
That's
saying
the other
they have
thing.
to make up for 30 years as a town employee, and Sarah's only been an employee for 3 years. So her contribution is going to be much less,
Pension
whereas the town screwed up with their pension system, because I was here in 1998 arguing about what was going on with the pension, and they were playing with it.
I know David's been here for a long time, but was he? on
Not
the
as
council
long
in
as me.
Was he on the council in 1998?
For 98.
Was he on the council in
I don't
1998?
remember, but I don't think so.
So you're looking at, and I completely agree with you. A lot of people point to the unions and they say the
It's
unions are
not the
the.
unions. I stood here and
Can I
said.
finish my sentence, please.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, come on.
I
Decorum.
was just saying that. People point to the unions. It's not the union's fault. And I've said it numerous times. It's whatever council, whether it's this town or
Thank
any
you.
other community, that they're at fault. Because I don't know a single person in this room, if your employee came up to you and said, I want to give you a 10% raise, you're gonna sit there and say, gee, that's way too much. I don't think I deserve that.
Exactly.
So when the councils back then were trying to get votes, they gave it away. And I'm not going to tell the current members who were promised when they signed on the dotted line that this was going to be their salary, that they're going to take it back.
Tell that to Gina Raimondo,
She's going to. So.
because the teachers are gonna get screwed. And the people in MERS, I've warned you before, don't believe what's going on at the State House. Okay, take it with a grain of salt. They screwed 12,000 state employees, and they'll probably do it to the teachers too. So, and I'll leave it at that, but take a look at those numbers. Any normal person, anybody here looking at those pages, they're gonna question it. And I blame you people for it. Because you haven't looked at it. Like I raised the issue with ESG. Have you done anything with that? That was a month ago.
Yes. I've looked into it.
Is the town doing something about it? Or are you just gonna accept it?
Yeah. No, it's not. I'm not going down.
Don't get mad. You know, he got
It's not a
mad
matter of
because I
getting
said
mad.
something about Diosa. Diosa does not know what he's doing.
Been on the job
And
for less than 6
hopefully he's
months.
watching. He has no background in finance.
Any other comment from the public on the budget?
I was laughing at her response to the question, Mr. Palazzo.
Said yes. I just have a question. I'm Al Lott from Factory Street.
Hi,
I'm a crossing guard.
hi.
Underneath on this budget, it says step 1, step 4, step 3. They're all different values. They're all different prices. And then it says benefits. What is that?
So benefits are payroll taxes. If you have health, dental,
We have nothing.
life insurance, so your benefit
Nothing.
number is probably small, just your payroll taxes.
Up taxes. We don't understand that. What,
So we have to pay 7.65% of your salary to the federal government. That's an expense to us. So that goes in the benefits count.
do you understand that? Because I sure as heck don't.
So the numbers are in the 700s, 796, 731. So if you get paid $100,
Mhm.
$7 of that
Goes
we have to pay to the government.
just
It's a benefit on your,
payroll taxes.
Right.
right,
Payroll, like you
Yes.
take it out of my check.
We also have.
but
to
we have to
them.
match that. The town
Oh,
actually
you
pays it
have to
on top
match-
that. That's
You have to
correct.
match. Oh, that's what, it
Yes.
should say taxes. It shouldn't be under a benefit. And then add it
Well,
in as a gross total.
It will actually be a benefit to you if you collect benefits in the future from the government. So that's why it's under benefits.
No, well, okay, I understand that we would collect it. But we're all over the age where we have our social security. We're never gonna see that money. We're never gonna see that money. We're already collecting it. So we're never gonna see that money. So really, the town, what, it just washes away with you guys?
Believe it or not, I had this discussion at work today about social security and the amount of people in our population, how it's dropping, meaning different generations having not producing children or whatever you want to call it. Or reduction in family sizes and in this generation not having kids and all that. Somebody's gonna be in trouble eventually in the social security side because not as many people are be paying into
Paying
it.
into it.
So
It
you are
is.
100% right. So what you're paying into it now
I'm
is
paying for
is
someone.
paying, so the generation before you was paying into it, now
Right.
you're paying.
Oh,
I'm
I
paying
get
into
that. No, I
I
get
feel bad
that.
for my
Right.
kids, because that's gonna be, I mean, they keep
I
upping
get
the
it.
age on that, on us. I mean.
We're
this-
hearing it already. You look at the government right now, what's going on. They're telling you right now, it could end, it could end, it could end. There'd be a war in this country if there ever was. on
If
the
it ends,
elderly.
just give me back what I put into it and I'd be happy. I'd be,
Because we work.
Been
The
working since
reason we
14.
work is
Right.
because we can't afford it.
Right.
We're retired people. We live on a fixed income and we can't afford it.
And again, it's because of the abuse of the system.
Yep.
That it's depleting it.
I mean,
you
my
know?
extra medical a month is $600
And
on top of my Medicare and all that.
and
That's
when-
an extra $600 a month. that's why I work.
and if somebody in the federal government would crack down on the abuse of social security, it might be salvageable.
Stop
But they're not
borrowing
going
it
to do
from it.
that because it's not politically correct. Bottom line. So,
No, it's just sad. It's just
And a
sad
lot
to
of it's
see what's
abuse.
happening. I mean, we love our jobs. I mean, we love our jobs.
You would have to
We-
do
we
it.
love it. I mean,
Yes.
we stand out in pouring rain. We in the heat, the cold, we freeze. We're out there. We're out there from the time we start at 10 after 6 in the morning. Yes, yes, we do. We feed all the dogs in the towns. I mean, we're there to put Pontiac on their bus. At 10 after 6, we get those kids on the bus. By 6:30, we're out there, we're out there. My buses are coming in already for the high school, then middle school. Sue does all the teachers, she does we deal with trucks, we deal with the garbage trucks, the delivery truck, we deal with everything up on that hill. So it's
And it
not an
is-
easy hill with that traffic.
And we definitely will look into what's happened.
It's the same rate as the police on track. They have the same responsibility.
But thank you for clarifying that. 'cause we
Yeah.
didn't understand it.
No,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other public comment before we move on to our regular council meeting?
Kind of took care of already was, I didn't understand why the crossing guards are on two different budgets. On a school budget, not a police budget.
They reimburse. them.
Yeah, it's get
Just what I'm
reimbursed.
saying,
It's
how-
crazy. We should look at how that system works.
Because
Yes.
both on the debit side,
Yeah. well,
right? So I mean, if somebody's paying the other one, somebody,
We have revenue in our revenues, that's crossing guards and SROs that they reimburse us.
but I think after tonight, you're gonna take
Yeah,
care of these
we're gonna
poor
look at
ladies.
that,
That's
right.
kind of crazy. So that one's going. Like field revenues, is that from renting the fields? And we're only getting $15,000 per year.
Again, Mark is looking at what those fees should be going forward with the new improved fields, but that has not been. that's-
But that's only a projected revenue of 15,000. That could actually,
No,
that
I
could,
know- I know
it
it's
could
not
actually, more.
projected, but I mean, the amount of fields we have and so forth, so I just think that.
And the amount of money we put
Very
into the
low number.
fields.
It
It-
is, we feel.
Just remember, local leagues get it for free. Town
No,
leagues,
no,
so
I-
West
I-
Warwick
I get
baseball.
that, and
West
I
Warwick
agree with
soccer.
that, but I think we, now that the fields are getting to be where they are, we can solicit some
Yes,
teams.
yes,
And
100%.
those, and
Jeff,
we
Jeff,
absolutely,
if you want to just come up, I know Jeff went over McCarthy Field with us last week during budget workshop, and he talked about the bookings, and so Jeff, if you want to answer that.
We got it booked up quite a bit this year, to hopefully increase the revenue.
Bless
The
you.
reason the revenue, to be honest with you, has been so low is because of the condition of the field.
No,
There
I
are people that didn't even
understand.
want to play on them. So
I believe that.
I'm hoping, to be honest with you, I don't want knock on wood. I'm hoping to almost double that by the time I'm done this year. That's my plan. But everything goes according to the way I
Yep.
hope it's gonna go and the way everything's projected right now.
So where does that money go? Once you hit 15,000 and it's projected revenue from the town, and say you double, just for argument's sake, you make 30, does that go back into the general fund?
Yep.
Personally, I don't agree with that at all, and that's for a discussion for a different night.
right.
Can I just ask what the reason is?
It's a general fund, so it's part of the balance, the expenses and revenues. So at the end of the year, you take your revenues less your expenditures, and that's what your surplus is, and that's how it's accounted for.
Going forward, could that be recalculated because like somebody else said, the upkeep of these fields, okay, because they are pristine, I mean, they're done professional.
Come a long way,
Okay.
from field to lighting.
they're not maintained. Town just spent all that money for nothing.
Hmm.
You know, whether it was a gift from the federal government or not, if not be maintained properly, it just
Be a shame.
I don't think anybody-
Them is in the Parks Department budget, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, so
Which is offset by that.
it's not gonna, that $15,000 isn't to maintain that.
no, but even the other parks budget that I looked at.
Yep.
You know, that's
So-
one thing that's
so
my
I-
wheelhouse. I get that one. Okay?
So
there's-
we're hoping, again, with Mark working on fees townwide, clearly there's a focus on those fields and making sure if someone comes from out of town to use them, whether it's for a tournament or whatever, that they actually have to pay a fee to make sure that we can maintain them. So that is something that is in the works. Absolutely should have, and to your point, we also talked about whether we should have money set aside for Parks and Rec and that kind of stuff. And that's, we're working on that. So all of that,
Another one that I don't understand because there's no clarification. Sewer administration fees. What is that?
So we have beaten that horse.
Yep.
So that is all the salaries in the town that support the wastewater treatment. They don't have a personnel director. They don't have collection clerks. They don't have accountants down there. That's the portion of the expenses that they pay to us for those positions.
so they don't have to,
Isn't that an enterprise?
so they don't have to hire an HR person. The town manager has time that he spends there. The billing is done here. And so yes.
But isn't that an enterprise though?
It is an enterprise fund and it's almost, in
Yes.
almost every town who has a wastewater, they do the same thing rather
Don't
than
we
having
have-
their own staff down there.
Other towns that contribute? to this?
That's all part of the intermunicipal agreements.
So in other words, the sewer department gets money, say from Coventry or Warwick or wherever, and out of that 360 comes from those other towns?
Nope, that was.
Administration
So
fees?
this is a revenue.
No, this is money.
This
that-
is a revenue for the town. On the wastewater budget, it's an expense. So however that's divided up, it's paid amongst all their ratepayers, wherever they live, whether it's Cranston,
Sewer
Coventry.
department pays
The town, correct.
Right,
That's
that-
correct.
But what about the other cities and towns? They contribute to this?
It's on the expense side, in the
On their
wastewater
expense side.
budget, it's divvied up amongst all their ratepayers.
Correct.
But so they'll make a revenue and pay it to the town. It's a revenue for us to offset some of the expenses that
Okay.
we,
As long as you brought that up, I wasn't gonna bring it up tonight, but I have a question on it. The 361 was the same as last year.
Mhm.
So, and it's based on, I looked through this whole thing.
Mhm.
It's based on time, right? Percentage of time that, I'm gonna use Mark. I always use Mark because you're right, it's sitting right across from me. So 20% of your salary is equivalent to, no matter how you slice it, 20% is 20%. I like to think of it simple, it's 1 day per week. So, and I'm looking at this as you're spending every Monday in your office with just sewer, and that's it. And that's every day for, every week for the whole year. That's what it comes out to, 20%. So if you're getting an increase, or anybody's getting an increase on that chart, how come that number is still the same as last year? Because that doesn't make it.
That should raise by 3%.
Actually, Kristen did explain that last
did
time that,
explain that,
that
yep.
she did not, yes, it should go up, but she kept it the same.
How do you, but it's not a true number
Because
then.
it is a true number. I explained it, that the benefits went down, the dental benefits went down, the
Correct.
health benefits that went down in those positions. And then the new hires that came on that are in new MERS, their pension is a fraction of what the people that are in the legacy MERS are. So all those difference in expenses offset the increase in the wages. It
So it's the
just
same
worked out
exact-
that way.
But it's just the same exact number?
Yeah, well, it was
No.
about $2,000 more. And I said, well, let's just level fund it rather than go for the $2,000 more.
I disagree with it only because of this. Well, you can really rise all you want, but it's coming from the sewer department is paying that extra revenue, correct? It's more. So they would be paying the town more, right?
They would be paying the town more.
Okay, so let's use that number.
Make it.
What's the difference? I mean,
Increase
it's,
it then.
you know,
I was just
I
trying
mean,
to.
just make it
be
accurate,
fair.
that's all. And if you spend 20% of your time on the sewer department, I think we have an issue with, and I've said this for 3 years. You spend 20% of your time on the sewer department.
Varies by week. I haven't tracked it for an exact formula. but
That's roughly, say, 7 hours a day times 52 weeks, is 350 hours a year on sewer. I honestly, I think if you do, we have an issue with the sewer department. And it involves management. Because I don't see where any department should need you for 20% of the time. I don't think that's fair to you at all. You're the town manager. And HR is 30% of the time. So those are big numbers. And all I'm looking for is accuracy. That's it. I'm sorry, but my perception, I think there's an issue if you have to spend that much time on a single department. So it is what it is. I've said it for 3 years. It's not going to change.
Right. Just a quick, the sewer budget, is that a separate time or do we already have that? I don't,
It's another,
No.
another time.
Another time.
number of time.
So they had a workshop. They did have a workshop last,
The
no,
last one, and then we can all call it part of it, I say. On legal, how come it's the only one that doesn't have any totals?
what are you looking at?
You say totals, just clarify.
Some of them.
What page? I don't know what page you're talking about.
Page 12.
Their actuals? Which, the actuals are there. Because they don't have
They're not
salary and
salaries.
benefits.
They're not salaries.
They don't get
Salary and
They're
benefits.
paid as a contractor.
1099.
It's just a
It's the actual-
summation
So
of
if you
what's
look at the
above.
fiscal year 23 actual, that's the total up till 1/31/23.
Right, so the actual would be 23,
Uh-huh,
720, right?
that's correct, yeah,
720,000.
as of March 17th.
Yes.
Now, just for maybe clerical purposes, if people can. I don't know how to go because of litigation fees.
Judgment settlements, and I've actually broken it out, so for next year it'll be separate. But the judgment and settlements are $536,250 of that 720.
Argument or anybody. People are gonna look at this as a late. So it's a salary, the number. Plaintiff attorney is a number. You have cost of litigation, the number. Cost of settlement is a number. So for anybody to look at this. and
So we had that,
anybody here tell me what the numbers are?
you're right.
Anybody know?
So at last week's workshop, we talked about that, and Kristen will going forward, because it's under insurance claims under $3,000, and clearly there are claims in there that are far more than $3,000, so they will be broken out. Yes,
I mean, they're not only insurance.
I didn't say that, yeah, this is exactly right. Nope, so,
That does come under litigation.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
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 Slip and fall or a suit, it's all litigated. But for the people, actually, for you, some of these, probably beyond that, so I'm not counting, but we're pretty damn good with numbers. So look at this sheet, I'm guaranteeing yourself, you can't break down my question. You don't have the answer. Okay? My concern, I'm sitting on the board of directors for a company. I gotta put a budget together. I can't make sense of what the numbers are. How do I vote on it?
And that's what
How
Mary,
do you vote on it?
that's what Mary Beth said with that one line. And there's been other conversations with other departments also to break it up better, hopefully for next year's budget. can't be reflected for this year.
Over there saying people doing things wrong, stealing money.
No,
I'm just saying, I think.
the presentation needs to
the
change.
presentation
Yes,
needs to be Cleaned up.
yes.
Because you were all accountants. Works different. But none of you are, okay? We're all probably have the same mindset. That should be in layman's terms, so that when you get it, you understand what you're looking at. When we get it, we understand what we're looking at. The only person knows what it is.
Well, the
is
truth,
sign.
the truth is, the first version that came out, John, didn't have those lawsuits in there. So when you look at it, because Mark just said to me, wait a minute, that number's not there.
So we got.
The updated version that you have out there with the manager's budget was changed and a line wasn't added. We've asked that a line be added. Yes, yes. Yeah. Yep.
A lot easier. People don't come up and ask questions. They can look,
I agree with 100%.
right?
Thank you. Any other public comment?
And they come up, they, how the school goes. Security for the school. Okay? I don't see anything in the school budget for increased security for the school. And in the day that we're living in now, this craziness, has anybody thought about putting some money into the school?
I would defer to the superintendent and the finance person. However, I do know that they spend a great deal of time on security, and they're certainly not going to stand here and tell us what their security plan
I
is.
do not want to-
Yes.
I know.
So, yeah, so, yeah.
Many cameras have been installed, a lot of things that are.
So,
very-
That is not for us to know.
well,
I was looking for a dollar amount, and I'm concerned that you weren't getting it.
I'd be happy to address your concerns.
Well, what you got up
Mr.
there is none of my business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, correct, in terms of,
Yeah.
I don't want to divulge
No, I
the
mean,
security, which
I
would
would-
defeat the
I'd
purpose.
be pleased
But
to
I
ask
can
those
assure
questions.
you that it's all, security is all part of a 5-year capital plan in terms of entryways, and there's a lot. So I can assure
Yeah,
you,
no,
it's been
The
addressed.
mechanics of it, I
Yeah,
don't want to know.
yeah.
As long as you're getting the money for it.
Yep.
Every week,
It's terrible. I agree with you.
you know,
it's scary.
in the last
Yeah.
couple of weeks, a lot of guns found in this town. There's plenty more. Oh, I got still got 2 grandkids, 3 grandkids. I don't want to get that close.
I do know that they spend a lot of time, not only on the physical security, but the training that goes along with it.
No,
And
it's gonna
yeah,
cost us.
every,
But I
every,
think that they need whatever money they need.
Don't disagree. Absolutely.
We, $500,000.
Yeah, wow, Joe, that was quick.
it's a gold star. That's a valid concern, and
Yes.
Mary Beth's, Councilwoman Williamson's
Oh,
point.
Mary Beth.
We do.
Yes.
We do constant training with the kids and the staff, and I sent something out the end of last week. Unfortunately, after there's another tragedy, it's a fair, concern that comes up. So we just need to remind people of things that we are doing, and I can just assure you it's a top priority of ours.
Thank you. Me again, Tom Oates, 6 Colonial Way. Pardon me, just to follow up with John. This, no reflection on anybody, but this mess, I can never figure out. Last week, I got an email and I opened up the Coventry budget. I read through that like it was Mary Had a Little Lamb. It was so simple. And everything any question I had for myself, I could find in there very quick. The format is difficult for me. And I think that maybe a different format, looking at the Coventry budget and how they prepare theirs. I mean, all the questions that we heard tonight, you wouldn't have had to listen to them because the answers are here.
And
So-
I can't disagree with you at all. We have 3 different budgets we look at, the sewer department, the town, and the civic center, and they're all put together differently. And yeah, I have a hard time looking at them. I have the same confusion. I'm just a layman. I'm not a finance person. Numbers, I hate numbers. They're they're easily manipulated, they're easily moved, there's a lot of things, and that's why the simplest we can make it, the easier for everybody to understand to me is the better way to do it.
I mean,
So,
I
agree
was
with you.
stunned when I looked at that email last week. Sitting out by the pool and we're thumbing through this budget and it was so
Kind of
simple
chilly
to read.
sitting by the pool, wasn't it?
He was
Beg your
not in
pardon?
this state.
Oh, all right. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it was- yeah, it
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Well,
Any other public comment before we move on to our regular meeting? There you go, one before you. One before you.
Hi, Ross Adrian from Brayton Street. First off, Councilman, you don't need to apologize. My mother used to say, watch out for your pennies and the dollars take care of themselves. And speaking of that, I've always wondered why the police department, who only has a few cars circling the town or a few cars on detail, has about 30 cars that we're paying extra insurance and parking for. We could probably reduce that number. And speaking also on that kind of service from the town, we have the other week, my wife had a heart attack. The guys from Phoenix in our department were there. It seemed like in 1 minute from my 911 call. But they told me they didn't have, all the trucks in West Warwick were out. And so they had to call Warwick to come and pick my wife up. I just talked to the chief and he said that West Warwick only has 2 trucks. And I think for a town with, I don't know, what do we have, about 60,000 people or more?
30.
You know, well, we have 30,000 houses, right? We have more people.
30,000 residents.
Well, still, 2 trucks and 2 crews to service all that, you know, all those people, it just seems a little bit less. So I was just wondering if you could keep it in mind either for this budget or next year's budget to maybe add another truck and crew, if you could.
So Russ, when I got on the council, they only had one man truck. And I know the council was very adamant about getting
Yeah.
2. There was a very large expense to that. You gotta remember, it's a
Yeah,
24/7 operation. And I don't disagree with you. The amount of ambulance runs in, when the chief prepared his budget, he put out there how many runs, how many times. our
He
guys are out.
told me it's a
And-
staggering
and the
amount.
amount of, when people sit there and say, oh, the fire department's not doing anything, they're out in front of the
Oh, they
station, they're
are.
not realizing 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, they're constantly running around 24-hour
It's
shifts.
not just rescue, it's the fires.
So again, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
I'd like to see a 3rd one, but what can we afford? And there's a very large expense to that 3rd one. Not only is the ambulance very expensive, but then you also got to man that with,
Selling extra cars.
those cars wouldn't cover the expense 1/3. I can tell you
Really?
that now.
Well, let's face it, Dave, you know, like, I know you and Miss, Counselor Williams will probably be working here till your 80s. And let's face it, every one of us at some point in their life is gonna need a ride from the rescue to the hospital. At some point, maybe even more than once, unfortunately. So yeah, if we could get another one at some point.
Russ, I'm right there with you. Unfortunately, somebody in
Thank
my
you.
family's used it a lot in the past year. And it's been, and it's always been professional. That's why, you
Right.
look at the police department, you look at the fire department, it's schools, it's hard to sit up here and make these tough decisions.
It is.
Because the first question you want to ask is when people say cut taxes, cut taxes. Well, the first question you got to ask is what services do you want to lose? And that's the toughest part up here. And it's always been a tough decision because
I know you cut my department.
I've been here where they said shut down certain fire departments. And What you just said, coming from Phoenix to your house and they're
Yeah.
in less than 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
If we
I
had
was
one on
amazed.
Natick and let's say all those firefighters were down in Natick and had to drive over Wakefield Street, now it's a 7-minute and every minute counts on a heart attack, correct?
Yes.
So, I'm always against, I like the way our town has our stations pointed out and.
The other thing is we
Avoid-
have an awful lot of older people. I'm 70 years old myself. I don't know old most of you are here, but let's face it, this town is an older town. Okay, we have a lot of senior citizens here. The other thing I wanted to ask, and I don't know if you could squeeze this into a budget, is can we do something to, like maybe dress up the walkways to town hall? Please. That's all, gentlemen. Thank you.
How's your wife? How's your wife?
She's getting along fine. She still has some bridges to cross and some appointments to make, but yeah, she spent a week in the hospital, and thank God for the West Warwick rescue operation.
We still have a meeting after this.
I've looked at some other budgets in other towns. And my only question is, every other town I've seen, when the department puts in what they want in the budget, the manager column is always different. But in West Warwick, it's like looking in a mirror. Usually the manager,
He cut a lot out.
He had many
usually the
conversations.
numbers, and I'm not coming after you, buddy.
No, I get it.
Listen,
I'm blessed with
Don't
some good
drop me
people,
down
so
to
we
it.
we
Don't drop
chat,
me-
we
that-
chat in advance
don't
sometimes.
drop me
after
down to a
submission.
watered down beer now, all right?
Yeah,
But this is, I was just wondering, because other towns, you see that the manager pushes back.
so the manager, I know, had numerous conversations with his department heads before they submitted their budget. So there was a lot of work and.
I'm just saying,
So
every
Derek-
other one you see,
Derek,
there's like,
$1.3 million was the proposed capital from the department heads. The town manager pushed back and said, good luck and come back with something different. So he prepared.
so he did the homework and then he just put
He
it
did
in.
the
All right.
legwork first.
All right.
That's correct.
His legs must be tired then, are they?
Exactly.
And then the other thing to reflect him, he said, let's give him 100, give him 500,000 for schools for safety. I'll tell you to give him $1 million if it keeps my kids safe. Okay,
Nobody
because like my
disagrees.
father said, that call doesn't need to come here. So if it takes $1 million to keep my son safe,
One of the nice things that I could say West Warwick does is we do have a police officer, SRO officer up there. Two of them.
Yeah.
And so in both, one in each building. So
And I'm
that's
gonna tell you
something a
the-
lot of communities
I'm gonna
don't
tell you, the
do.
room that scares me the most, and I've said this to a few people within the town and within the school. We went to parent-teacher conference last year. Maybe it's this year, beginning with whoever you guys had there. Those art rooms scare me to death. Okay, because when I was there, it was one big room. Now it's cut down to 3 rooms. God forbid there's a fire in there. Only one room has ingress and egress. I'm scared to death of those rooms. I'm gonna tell you right now. The other room I'm scared to death with is the art room at the top of the hill with that window that's at grade level. Scares the death out of me with the world we're living in. So if we're gonna make some changes, I would love to know that's gonna be one of them. And I know you're having trouble with a lot of kids, and I know you're gonna make these classrooms smaller to make more room. I get it. But those ones in the basement scare me to death. And my son is down there 3 periods a day. And I know that school pretty good. There's only one way out, only one door at the bottom of that hill. So I really want you guys to start taking that.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the budget? Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, Alan, you want to hear about my pension, my friend? Thank you. Bio break and come back.
I like that.